So, as I am sure you know, there was a lot of right-wing outrage recently over this new ad from the Gillette Corporation, and on some level, I guess I get it. It's like, fine, yes, a lot of people don't like the idea of corporations lecturing them on this or that, even if the opinion they're expressing is just something incredibly mild, like men shouldn't be jerks. But I must say, overall, I found the debate just really tiresome, and kind of a symptom of just how limited a lot of our modern debate on men's issues is. Basically, our conversation about what's wrong with men has become way too much about women. Progressive-minded people spend a lot of time talking about how men should behave around women, and then you got the more conservative-minded people who spend a lot of time complaining about, like, women feminizing men and this sort of thing. And that's important enough, but the one thing that I've always been interested in, and something I don't think we talk about enough, is the degree that men are often quite awful to other men. Particularly the degree that one set of men really likes to prey on and exploit the insecurities of another group of men for fun and profit. YouTube provides a very good window into this phenomenon just because it is such a bustling marketplace of content. I've been keeping a closer eye on this lately, so let me just give you a few examples. So I am pretty into fashion, and as a result, I spend a lot of time watching various male YouTube fashion channels. And recently, there has started to be a bit of a growing backlash to a bunch of the big names in the male YouTube fashion scene. This is because a lot of the channels are descending into like brazenly predatory rackets, in which men's insecurities about their looks are being exploited in order for guys to sell them a bunch of junk. There is a small fashion YouTuber from England named Ben Arthur who I quite like because he has been producing a bunch of videos lately attempting to hold some of the bigger names in the male YouTube fashion scene to account. Accountable for stuff like exploiting the ignorance that a lot of men have about fashion brands in order to sell them inferior products that they're getting paid to endorse.
I have 5 reasons why, in my opinion, movement watches are better than Rolex.
Is the first reason the fact that you're paid, Aaron? That you think there's something that's clearly not comparable in any way, shape or form to a Rolex is better than a Rolex?
Or pushing quack cures to fix things about your appearance that science says you really can't change? Or just straight up loudly and often calling their audiences ugly in order to build up dependence? Then there's this other YouTuber I've been getting into recently called Philion. He's this sort of brash New Yorker who does a lot of videos calling out men for exploiting other men, mostly in the fitness industry. In the male YouTube fitness world, there's all these guys that have like these crazy muscular bodies and they go around saying things like, oh, I'm all natural and you can be just like me if you follow my fitness regiment or whatever. And Phil does videos where he explains why, no, this is actually impossible. These guys are very clearly on steroids and all sorts of other drugs.
I love this picture right here. Look at this 1-year transformation picture. Look at his back in January of 2015 versus July of 2016. Unless he went from 135 to 700 pound deadlift, there is no f***ing way your back grows that much in a year and a half. You see, it's cute. It's really cute. Hashtag cue the haters. I guess I'm a hater then.
Phil gets a lot of pushback for this because it seems that a lot of steroid-taking men are incredibly insecure about the fact that they're taking drugs.
With no background information, no nothing. All speculation.
It's not speculation. Did you provide any counter arguments whatsoever in this video?
Which I suppose reveals something about the degree that they themselves were probably at some point scammed into unrealistic fitness goals of their own. And as I am watching more videos about fashion and fitness, I of course inevitably get subjected to all of these money-making scam advertisements. If you are a young man, I assume you have seen a lot of these style of ads. They're usually based around the premise that some young guy, just like you, was tired of living the rat race, and so he discovered some mysterious and miraculous new system for making money.
Just woke up and we've already made about $12,000 today.
All my businesses combined have made me over $50,000 this month.
And in my 5th year, by the time I turned 26 years old, I'd made over $10 million.
And now he has this very awesome lifestyle, yada yada. Obviously, hustlers pushing get-rich-quick schemes is nothing new, but this new generation of hustlers are unique in just how savvy they are at using these very powerful images of a lifestyle that a lot of young men really think they want. But of course, these images are very obviously fake as well, and there is no shortage of YouTubers willing to debunk them.
Went from sleeping in a mobile home, you know, with $47 in my bank account to a place like this in Beverly Hills.
What's this? Zillow.com, a short-term rental website. This house is located in Beverly Hills. Interesting.
And by the way, do you know what the big secret of becoming a multi-millionaire 20-year-old always winds up being? Figure out a way to scam other 20-year-olds. You could also say that a lot of this alt-right political stuff, which also seems to have a certain resonance with young men, is pitched in a very similar way. When you look at the sort of folks who are pushing political extremism, whether it's white nationalism or whatever, they're always like, hey, don't be some blue-pilled cock. Watch my videos and learn the truth about the world. Being a horrible racist, misogynist is how you assert your alpha dominance. Don't be an NPC soy boy beta. In fact, I've noticed that there tends to be a great deal of overlap between the sort of people that are pushing crazy politics and the people who are running some other hustle about fitness or money making or whatever. The common thread is just the exploitation of insecurity. So what is it that young men want? Well, I would say they want some combination of being successful, smart, powerful, and free. There's nothing particularly new about that. But into that mix, our current culture adds in this idea that you have to get all of these things when you're really, really young too. This is partially because we live in an age in which it is easier than ever to find and promote these stories of men who have been hyper successful at a very young age. Guys like Bieber and Zuckerberg and Post Malone and all the rest. You could easily lump a lot of the big YouTube stars into this category as well. You know, the ones that just sort of run around spending crazy amounts of money and driving fancy cars and basically just living this very fun, carefree lifestyle that doesn't seem to involve any work at all. These guys are less nefarious than some of the others because they're just entertainers. They're not really trying to pitch or promote anything. But it is all part of the background noise that young men have to navigate these days. I am not the sort of person that blames everything on the media. I'm really not. When I took communications classes in university, I was very resistant to this idea that, you know, we're all brainwashed by McDonald's ads and violent video games. But I do think there is something about the current internet culture that is quite uniquely exploitive of the insecurities of young men, in part because it is just so aggressive and so multimedia and so interactive. And I think that that is something that people need to think about and talk more openly about. The reason why all this stuff bothers me is because, you know, I'll be honest with you, I'm a pretty insecure person myself. I want people to think that I'm good looking and smart, and I want to be, you know, famous and powerful. I'm kind of successful, but, you know, I often feel anxious because I'm 34 years old. And there's a lot of guys out there that seem to have achieved way more than me, and they're like 10 years younger. Now, to be sure, having some degree of insecurity can be perfectly healthy or even positive. It's always good to feel a little bit uncomfortable or dissatisfied with your lot in life, since that's how we get motivated to self-improve. Over time, ideally, we learn to balance our insecurities against the aspects of our lives that we can justifiably appreciate. The problem is when your insecurities become all inflated and exaggerated out of proportion due to unachievable dreams. That's how you get trapped in a desperate cycle that can lead to depression and anxiety and all sorts of bad choices, from wasting huge amounts of money to political radicalization. We all bear personal responsibility for learning how to keep our insecurities in check and prevent them from consuming us. But I really have a great deal of contempt for people who devote their lives to doing just the opposite. Guys who try to push other guys into ever deeper pits of insecurity in order to get something for themselves. It's something that men are obviously very good at doing to other men, because of course men have a great deal of insight into the emotional state of other men. But of course in the end, men who scam or exploit the insecurities of other men usually just become horribly insecure themselves, because unless they're a complete sociopath, they obviously know that they're running a hustle, and thus any success that they achieve is fundamentally illegitimate and immoral. So it's really just a terrible cycle of misery for all involved. Right now, we as a culture are having a very big conversation about gender, and it mostly takes the form of men versus women stuff, which is important. You know, we need to get that sorted out. But not all important dynamics of gender are strictly about relations between the genders. Sometimes they're within. This is something that women have long understood, which is why, you know, a lot of women spend a lot of time analyzing how women treat other women as women. But I don't think that men do this enough. So, judging from my YouTube analytics, I see that about 90% of my YouTube subscribers are young men. That puts you guys in a good position to offer some feedback about what I've been talking about today. Do you often feel exploited as a young man? What sort of stuff in the culture triggers your insecurities? And do you know any other YouTubers who do good takedowns about this sort of stuff? Because I do think it is very important for guys to offer articulate pushback. That is where true power and freedom really comes from. Realizing the degree that you are in control of your own life and resisting those who try to take that agency away from you. I will see you all next week.